to the Elusive Truth with Rich and Larry. Just when you thought it was safe to go out and enjoy life again, the Russian-Ukraine war, more doom and gloom. Hate to say it, folks, but we are already in the rabbit hole. So here we are. The Ukraine, Putin, NATO, World War III, the media is firing on all cylinders right now, and it's all doom and gloom. So we're going to start off with Biden addressing the current situation that us people in clown world find ourselves in. So have a listen.
Good afternoon. The Russian military has begun a brutal assault on the people of Ukraine. Without provocation, without justification, without necessity, this is a premeditated attack. Vladimir Putin has been planning this for months, as we've been saying all along. He moved more than 175,000 troops, military equipment, and positions along the Ukrainian border. He moved blood supplies into position and built a field hospital, which tells you all you need to know about his intentions all along. He rejected every good faith effort the United States and our allies and partners made to address our mutual security concerns through dialogue to avoid needless conflict and avert human suffering. For weeks, we have been warning that this would happen. And now it's unfolding largely as we predicted. In the past week, we've seen shelling increase in the Donbass, a region in eastern Ukraine controlled by Russian-backed separatists. The Russian government has perpetrated cyber attacks against Ukraine. We saw a staged political theater in Moscow, outlandish and baseless claims that Ukraine was about to invade and launch a war against Russia, that Ukraine was prepared to use chemical weapons, that Ukraine committed a genocide. Without any evidence, we saw a flagrant violation of international law in attempting to unilaterally create two new so-called republics on sovereign Ukrainian territory. And at the very moment that the United Nations Security Council was meeting to stand up for Ukraine's sovereignty, to stave off invasion, Putin declared his war. Within moments, missile strikes began to fall on historic cities across Ukraine. Then came the air raids, followed by tanks and troops rolling in. We've been transparent with the world. We've shared declassified evidence about Russia's plans and cyber attacks and false pretexts so that there could be no confusion or cover-up about what Putin was doing. Putin is the aggressor. Putin chose this war, and now he and his country will bear the consequences. Today, I'm authorizing additional strong sanctions and new limitations on what can be exported to Russia. This is going to impose severe cost on the Russian economy, both immediately and over time. We have purposely designed these sanctions to maximize the long-term impact on Russia and to minimize the impact on the United States and our allies. I want to be clear, the United States is not doing this alone. For months, we've been building a coalition of partners representing well more than half the global economy. 27 members of the European Union, including France, Germany, Italy, as well as the United Kingdom, Canada, Japan, Australia, New Zealand, and many others, to amplify the joint impact of our response. I just spoke with the G7 leaders this morning, and we're in full and total agreement. We will limit Russia's ability to do business in dollars, euros, pounds, and yen to be part of the global economy. We'll limit their ability to do that. We're going to stunt the ability to finance and grow the Russian military. We're going to impose and we're going to impair their ability to compete in high-tech 21st century economy. We've already seen the impact of our actions on Russia's currency and the ruble, which early today hit its weakest level ever in history. The Russia stock market plunged today. The Russian government borrowing rate spiked by over 15%. In today's actions, we've now sanctioned Russian banks that together hold around $1 trillion in assets. We've cut off Russia's largest bank, a bank that holds more than 1/3 of Russia's banking assets by itself, cut it off from the U.S. financial system. And today, we're also blocking 4 more major banks. That means every asset they have in America will be frozen. This includes VTB, the second largest bank in Russia, which has $250 billion in assets. As promised, we're also adding the names to the list of Russian elites and their family members that were sanctioned as well. As I said on Tuesday, these are people who personally gain from the Kremlin's policies, and they should share in the pain. We will keep up this drumbeat of those designations against corrupt billionaires in the days ahead. On Tuesday, we stopped the Russian government from raising money from U.S. or European investors. Now we're going to apply the same restrictions to Russia's largest state-owned enterprises, companies with assets that exceed $1.4 trillion. Some of the most powerful impacts of our actions will come over time as we squeeze Russia's access to finances and technology for strategic sectors of its economy and degrade its industrial capacity for years to come. Between our actions and those of our allies and partners, we estimate that we'll cut off more than half of Russia's high-tech imports. It will strike a blow to their ability to continue to modernize their military. It'll degrade their aerospace industry, including their space program. It'll hurt their ability to build ships, reducing their ability to compete economically. And it will be a major hit to Putin's long-term strategic ambitions. And we're preparing to do more. In addition to the economic penalties we're imposing, we're also taking steps to defend our NATO allies, particularly in the East. Tomorrow, NATO will convene a summit. We'll be there to bring together the leaders of 30 allied nations and close partners to affirm our solidarity and to map out the next steps we will take to further strengthen all aspects of our NATO alliance. Although we provided over $650 million in defensive assistance to Ukraine just this last year, let me say it again. Our forces are not and will not be engaged in the conflict with Russia in Ukraine. Our forces are not going to Europe to fight in Ukraine, but to defend our NATO allies and reassure those allies in the East. As I made crystal clear, the United States will defend every inch of NATO territory with the full force of American power. And the good news is, NATO is more united and more determined than ever. There is no doubt that the United States and every NATO ally will meet our Article 5 commitments, which says that an attack on one is an attack on all. Over the past few weeks, I ordered thousands of additional forces to Germany and Poland as part of our commitment to NATO. On Tuesday, in response to Russia's aggressive action, including its troop presence in Belarus and the Black Sea, I've authorized the deployment of ground and air forces already stationed in Europe to NATO's eastern flank allies, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland, and Romania. Our allies have also been stepping up, adding the other allies, the rest of NATO, adding their own forces and capabilities to ensure collective defense. And today, within hours of Russia's unleashing its assault, NATO came together and authorized and activated an activation of response plans. This will enable NATO's high readiness forces to deploy and when and where they are needed to protect our NATO allies on the eastern boundaries of Europe. And now I'm authorizing additional U.S. force capabilities to deploy to Germany as part of NATO's response, including some of the U.S.-based forces that the Department of Defense placed on standby weeks ago. I've also spoken with Defense Secretary Austin and Chairman of the Joint Chiefs, General Milley, about preparations for additional moves should they become necessary to protect our NATO allies and support the greatest military alliance in the history of the world, NATO. As we respond, my administration is using the tools, every tool at its disposal, to protect American families and businesses from rising prices at the gas pump. You know, we're taking active steps to bring down the cost, and American oil and gas companies should not exploit this moment to hike their prices to raise profits. You know, in our sanctions package, we specifically designed to allow energy payments to continue. We are closely monitoring energy supplies for any disruption. We've been coordinating with major oil-producing and consuming countries toward our common interest to secure global energy supplies. We are actively working with countries around the world to elevate collective release from the strategic petroleum reserves of major energy-consuming countries. And the United States will release additional barrels of oil as conditions warrant. I know this is hard and that Americans are already hurting. I will do everything in my power to limit the pain the American people are feeling at the gas pump. This is critical to me. But this aggression cannot go unanswered. If it did, the consequences for America would be much worse. America stands up to bullies. We stand up for freedom. This is who we are. Let me also repeat the warning I made last week. If Russia pursues cyber attacks against our companies, our critical infrastructure, we are prepared to respond. For months, we've been working closely with the private sector to harden our cyber defenses, sharpen our ability to respond to Russian cyber attacks as well. I spoke last night to President Zelensky of Ukraine, and I assured him that the United States, together with our allies and partners in Europe, will support the Ukrainian people as they defend their country. We'll provide humanitarian relief to ease their suffering. In the early days of this conflict, Russia propaganda outlets will keep trying to hide the truth and claim success for its military operation against a made-up threat. But history has shown, time and again, how swift gains in territory eventually give way to grinding occupations, acts of mass civil disobedience, and strategic dead ends. The next few weeks and months will be hard on the people of Ukraine. Putin has unleashed a great pain on them, but the Ukrainian people have known 30 years of independence. They have repeatedly shown that they will not tolerate anyone who tries to take their country backwards. This is a dangerous moment for all of Europe, for the freedom around the world. Putin has committed an assault on the very principles that uphold the global peace. But now, the entire world sees clearly what Putin and his Kremlin allies are really all about. This was never about a genuine security concerns on their part. It was always about naked aggression, about Putin's desire for empire by any means necessary, by bullying Russia's neighbors through coercion and corruption, by changing borders by force, and ultimately by choosing a war without a cause. Putin's actions betray his sinister vision for the future of our world, one where nations take what they want by force. But it is a vision that the United States and freedom-loving nations everywhere will oppose with every tool of our considerable power. The United States and our allies and partners will emerge from this stronger, more united, more determined, and more purposeful. And Putin's aggression against Ukraine will end up costing Russia dearly, economically and strategically. We will make sure of that. Putin will be a pariah on the international stage. Any nation that countenances Russia's naked aggression against Ukraine will be stained by association. When the history of this era is written, Putin's choice to make a totally unjustifiable war on Ukraine will have left Russia weaker and the rest of the world stronger. Liberty, democracy, human dignity, these are the forces far more powerful than fear and oppression. They cannot be extinguished by tyrants like Putin and his armies. They cannot be erased by from people's hearts and hopes by any amount of violence and intimidation. They endure. In the contest between democracy and autocracy, between sovereignty and subjugation, make no mistake, freedom will prevail. God bless the people of a free and democratic Ukraine. May God protect our troops.
Mr. President.
Associated Press, Zeke.
So do you have any plans to speak with President Putin at this point? And what interactions have you had with the Russian government?
I heard the first part. Do I have any plans to speak with Putin at this point? And what?
What communications have you had with the Kremlin as far as military operations in Ukraine and making sure this does not spiral into a larger conflict?
Well, it's a large conflict already. The way we're going to ensure it's not going to aspire to a larger conflict is by providing all the forces needed in the Eastern European nations that are members of NATO. NATO is more united than it's ever been, and I have no plans to talk with Putin.
Mr. President.
Wall Street Journal, Tarina.
Mr. President, you didn't mention SWIFT in your sanctions that you announced. Is there a reason why the U.S. Isn't doing that? Is there a disagreement among allies regarding SWIFT and whether Russia should be allowed to be a part of it?
The sanctions that we proposed on all their banks are of equal consequence, maybe more consequence than SWIFT, number one. Number two, it is always an option, but right now that's not the position that the rest of Europe wishes to take. Cecilia Vega, ABC.
Sir, sanctions clearly have not been enough to deter Vladimir Putin to this point. What is going to stop him? How and when does this end? And do you see him trying to go beyond Ukraine? And a second question I'll just give to you now. This statement that he gave last night, the threat that he gave, the West will face consequences greater than any you have faced in history. Is he threatening a nuclear strike?
I have no idea what he's threatening. I know what he has done, number one. And number two, no one expected the sanctions to prevent anything from happening. It has to show, this is going to take time, and we have to show resolve so he knows what's coming. And so the people of Russia know what he's brought on them. That's what this is all about. This is going to take time. It's not going to occur. He's going to say, oh my God, these sanctions are coming. I'm going to stand down. He's going to test the resolve of the West to see if we stay together, and we will. We will, and it will impose significant costs on him.
Will he go beyond Ukraine, sir? Do you see him going?
Yes.
Thank you. Two topics, just really quick. First, markets are down and gas prices are up. I know you always stress the difference between Wall Street and Main Street, but everybody seems to be in for some economic pain. How economically painful is it going to get for people in this country? And I do have one more question.
First of all, there's no doubt that when a major nuclear power attacks and invades another country, that the world is going to respond, and markets can respond all over the world. So there's no doubt about that, number one. Number two, the notion that this is going to last for a long time is highly unlikely as long as we continue to stay resolved in imposing the sanctions we're going to impose on Russia, period. What's the next question? I'm sorry.
The next question is, did you underestimate Putin, and would you still describe him the way that you did in the summer as a worthy adversary?
At the time, he was, I made it clear, as an adversary, and I said he was worthy. I didn't underestimate him. And I've read most of everything he's written. Did you read I shouldn't, I'm not a wise guy. You heard the speech he made, almost an hour's worth of speeches, why he was going into Ukraine. He has much larger ambitions in Ukraine. He wants to, in fact, reestablish the former Soviet Union. That's what this is about. And I think that his ambitions are completely contrary to the place where the rest of the world has arrived.
And with that, with his ambitions, you're confident that these devastating sanctions are going to be as devastating as Russian missiles and bullets and tanks?
Yes, Russian bullets, missiles, and tanks in Ukraine. Yes, I am.
Thank you, President Biden. If sanctions cannot stop President Putin, what penalty can?
I didn't say sanctions couldn't stop him.
You've been talking about the threat of these sanctions for several weeks now.
Yes, but the threat of the sanctions and imposing the sanctions and seeing the effect of the sanctions are two different things. They're two different things. And he's going to begin to see the effect of the sanctions.
And what will that do? How will that change his mindset here, given he's
because
attacking
it will so
Ukraine
weaken his country that he'll have to make a very, very difficult choice as to whether to continue to move toward being a second-rate power or, in fact, respond.
You said in recent weeks that big nations cannot bluff when it comes to something like this. You recently said that the idea of personally sanctioning President Putin was on the table. Is that a step that you're prepared to take? And if not,
it's not a bluff, it's on the table.
Sanctioning President Putin?
Yes.
Why not sanction him today, sir? Mr. President? Why not sanction him today, sir?
Mr. President, if I can, you detailed some severe and swift new sanctions today and said the impact it will have over time. But given the full-scale invasion, given that you're not pursuing disconnecting Russia from what's called SWIFT, the international banking system, or other sanctions at your disposal, respectfully, sir, what more are you waiting for?
Specifically, with the sanctions we've imposed exceed SWIFT. The sanctions we imposed exceed anything that's ever been done. The sanctions we imposed have generated 2/3 of the world joining us. They are profound sanctions. Let's have a conversation in another month or so to see if they're working. Yes.
Can I ask you about Zelensky? Sir, you spoke to Vladimir Zelensky yesterday, sir?
What's the risk that we are watching the beginning of another Cold War, and is there now a complete rupture in U.S. and Russian relations?
There is a complete rupture right now in U.S.-Russian relations if they continue on this path that they're on. And in terms of a Cold War, that depends. You have the vast majority of the rest of the world in total opposition to what he's doing, from Asia to South America to Europe to around the world. And so it's going to be a cold day for Russia. The idea, you don't see a whole lot of people coming to his defense.
And are you, if I could follow up, sir, are you urging China to help isolate Russia? Are you urging China to help isolate Russia?
I'm not prepared to comment on that at the moment. No. Yeah. No. He's had his hand up a long time.
Thank you, Mr. President. How concerned are you that Putin wants to go beyond Ukraine into other countries, and the U.S. will have to get involved if he moves into NATO countries?
Well, if he did move into NATO countries, he will be involved. We will be involved. The only thing that I'm convinced of is if we don't stop now, he'll be emboldened. If we don't move against him now with these significant sanctions, he will be emboldened. Look, anyway.
Can you talk anything more about your conversation? Mr. President.
Why not sanction Putin directly today?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sir, India, which is a major defense partner of the United States, is India fully with you on the issue of Ukraine and Russia?
Does the Defense Department of the United States...
Sir, India is one of your major defense partners. Is India fully in sync with the United States on Russia?
We're in consultation with India today. We haven't resolved that completely.
One more question.
Okay, thank you all very much. Thank you.
Why was that so hard to understand? Why was that so hard to listen to? I mean, especially when it's so important that we're understanding what the United States is doing about this. And how about the media? Wow, that was a crazy press conference. Again, no answer for China's involvement. And then we're worried about what's going on with India and their role in this with the government. We are all over the board on these topics, and we're still trying to find out what's really going on between Russia and the Ukraine. Next segment is with Steve Hilton from Fox News, and he's going to give us his little spin on this. Have a listen. Very interesting.
Well, would you believe it? Dear old Chuck Todd got right to the heart of this issue this morning when he asked Secretary of State Antony Blinken this about Russia and Ukraine.
Let me ask this question. In your assessment, why is he escalating with Ukraine now? Why didn't he do this under the previous administration, who wasn't as supportive of NATO?
Let's think. Perhaps because in the real world, not the fake PR-driven world of Washington pundits and most Democrat politicians, and it seems all the senior members of the Biden regime, in the real world, what you do is more important than what you say. What the previous administration, President Trump, did is send arms to Ukraine, reversing the Obama-Biden position. What Trump did is actually strengthen NATO by shaming them into spending more on defense. And most importantly of all, given that Russia is, as someone once observed, basically a gas station with nuclear weapons, President Trump massively increased our leverage against Russia by expanding our domestic energy production and making us a net exporter for the first time in nearly 70 years. On top of that, Trump put sanctions on the pipeline that was a lifeline for Russia's economy, Germany's Nord Stream 2. In a word, Trump projected strength. Putin took note. He didn't try anything on when Trump was there. Neither did China's dictator, Xi, or Iran, or Little Rocket Man. Now let's look at what Biden has projected. On the actual substance, actions, not words, it's been a slow-motion surrender to Vladimir Putin. On his first day, Biden attacked our energy industry by cancelling the Keystone pipeline. Within weeks, he lifted Trump's sanctions on Putin's pipeline. Ever since taking office, Biden has waged war on American energy to pander to his extremist climate zealots, even though Trump's expansion of natural gas helped reduce our carbon emissions. Even more ludicrously, by cutting domestic energy, Biden had to beg OPEC to pump more oil. Now, Biden's talking tough on Putin.
We're ready to impose severe sanctions on Russia if it further invades Ukraine.
Oh, severe sanctions. Can someone please tell his own administration? Because the day before Biden said that, his own energy regulators were imposing severe sanctions on us. A massive new clampdown on liquefied natural gas pipelines and export terminals. We have huge amounts of natural gas sitting underground in Appalachia that we could export to Europe so they don't have to rely on Putin's gas. And Biden just blocked it. You think Putin didn't notice? It's not just on energy. The same day as Biden was threatening severe sanctions on Russia, his own deputy national security advisor was asked if that would include kicking Russia out of the International Financial Transaction System, SWIFT. Here's what he said.
It's probably not going to be the case that you'll see SWIFT in the initial rollout package. We have other severe measures we can take that our allies and partners are ready to take in lockstep with us and that don't have the same spillover effects.
Spillover effects. Yeah, that's economics jargon for things that have unintended consequences elsewhere. So what message does that send to Putin? We'll shut you out of the world economy, except we won't because that might hurt us. The Biden people are patting themselves on the back for their brilliant new strategy of trying to beat Putin at his own game of information warfare by disclosing his moves in advance. Because today's Democrats treat everything as PR because for them virtue signaling is more important than reality, they seem to think that they can somehow beat Putin with media relations, head fake him into backing down. These people are just not serious. The great geniuses of governance and foreign policy, Jake Sullivan, Ron Klain, Biden himself with all his years of experience, years of being wrong, as Bob Gates memorably put it. He has been wrong on nearly every major foreign policy and national security issue over the past 4 decades. And Bob Gates worked alongside Biden in Obama's cabinet. Putin can smell Biden's weakness a mile off. Biden claims he's rallied the allies, so they're all going to stand up to Putin. Oh, really? Guess what the Germans pledged to help defend Ukraine? 5,000 helmets. Not helmets, not 5,000 German troops, 5,000 helmets. 2 weeks ago, finally understanding the strategic importance of the Nord Stream pipeline, Biden hosted German Chancellor Olaf Scholz in the White House and bragged about persuading the Germans to shut Nord Stream down if Putin made a move.
If Russia invades, that means tanks or troops crossing the border of Ukraine again. Then there will be no longer a Nord Stream 2. We will bring an end to it. The notion that Nord Stream 2 would go forward with an invasion by the Russians is just not going to happen.
God, he's really struggling there. But at that exact same press conference, standing next to Biden, Scholz refused to even say the words Nord Stream. He was asked directly, repeatedly, and he wouldn't say it. Great job there, Joe, rallying the allies. And by the way, let's just recall that a certain president raised the Nord Stream issue years ago.
So we're supposed to protect you against Russia, but they're paying billions of dollars to Russia, and I think that's very inappropriate. And the former chancellor of Germany is the head of the pipeline company that's supplying the gas. Ultimately, Germany will have almost 70% of their country controlled by Russia with natural gas. So you tell me, is that appropriate? I mean, I've been complaining about this from the time I got in. It should have never been allowed to have happened.
Exactly. Now, Biden and all the establishment geniuses want to shut down Nord Stream, they say. But when Trump said it, it was all, oh my God, how embarrassing, how undiplomatic, what a joke they all are. Putin can see they're a joke. He can see how Biden has made America weaker. Not just the self-sabotage on energy, but weakening our defenses, cutting our military, the humiliating surrender to the Taliban, and our catastrophic bungled exit from Afghanistan. None of this helps America. It hurts America. And here's what else hurts America. The idea that random dictators can just invade countries on a whim, or to seize resources, or because of some twisted historical obsession, as we're seeing with Putin in Ukraine and Xi Jinping with Taiwan. That is not a world we should want to live in. It does matter that countries play by the rules of civilized society. People look to America to uphold the values of freedom and opportunity and self-determination. That's why so many people admire and love America. And as a new citizen, I can testify to that personally. As you know, my parents fled from communism in Hungary, but most of the family stayed behind. When I was a kid, I heard this phrase all the time to describe a horde of people. Jönnek mint az oroszok. It means they're coming like the Russians. And in 1956, the Russians did come, crushing the People's Revolution in Hungary. The West did nothing, and my family, along with millions of other Hungarians, suffered another 30-odd years of communism. I'm not saying we should go and get bogged down in yet another war. Of course not. But the choice is not between sending Americans to die in some distant land, while our own land is under threat, moreover, and doing nothing. There's another way, a better way, and guess who figured it out? Yes, the person that the foreign policy geniuses who got us into the endless wars dismiss as an incompetent maniac. Trump was the first president in decades not to get America involved in a new war. Like Reagan, he understood the idea of peace through strength. And like Reagan, he understood that a strong country, a strong military, is built on a strong economy. Watch this from a conversation I had with President Trump in 2019.
I want to invade if I have to economically. We've created a much stronger country economically than when I took it over. We have tremendous power economically. If I can solve things economically, that's the way I want it.
America first does not mean America alone, and it does not mean America stays at home. It means America leads. Economically, scientifically, militarily, America first, America number one, America leads. When you have a strong president who gets this and projects this, they don't need to engage in ludicrous PR games and information warfare. Again, watch President Trump respond when I asked him on another occasion about Xi Jinping and Taiwan.
If China, and it looks like they're getting more and more belligerent, tries to either invade Taiwan or effectively take control of it and its important industries, would you let them get away with that?
I think it's an inappropriate place to talk about it. But China knows what I'm going to do. China knows.
Xi Jinping knew that Trump wouldn't stand for any aggression. Putin knew that Trump wouldn't stand for any aggression. Iran, North Korea, they all knew. And the world was safer, America was safer as a result. Sadly, that is not the situation we face today. Today we have a president who is undermining all of America's advantages because he's too weak, too feeble to stand up to the far-left activists who now run his party. As a result, instead of peace through strength, we could be facing war through weakness.
As you just heard, way more complicated, and this has been in the works for some time now. The more you look into this, the more complicated it will get, and you will find, ultimately, the more money that's involved with this. It's crazy. This is not what most people want, and I believe it's not what many people of the world do not want. We're tired of the war. We're tired of this. We want peace. Next, we have President Trump holding a press conference after speaking at CPAC in Orlando. As you will hear, this is a big difference between Joe Biden's press conference.
Mr. President.
Nice to see you all.
Good to see you.
Very good.
Mr. President, can I jump right in if I may? Quick question. Good to see you. Great to see you. It's very noteworthy that under 4 years of President Trump, Vladimir Putin made no moves on any region, any country, anything he wants so dearly to bring back into the Soviet Union. Does his move and what's going on in Ukraine right now make it any more interesting for you to run for president in 2024?
I just think it's a shame what's going on. There was no reason for it. It shouldn't have happened. It would not have happened if our administration were in place. Not even close. He always had a feeling for Ukraine, but it would never have happened. What's happening today is so sad when you watch it, when you see what's going on. Now, who knows where it's going? I mean, very brave people. The way they're fighting, it's an amazing thing, but this would never have happened. Already thousands of people are dead. This would have never happened.
And does it make you want to run for president anymore?
I just want to do what's right for the country, and that's what we'll do. We'll do what's right for the country. At the right time, we'll let you know. And thank you for that question. I appreciate that question. You know, we also gave a lot of the javelins that you're hearing so much about. We gave those javelins when President Obama was giving sheets and pillows and I guess blankets. That didn't help too much, but we gave javelins, a lot of them too, and I guess that's helping a lot.
Mr. President.
Mr. President.
Yeah, please go ahead. How are you? Nice to see you.
Good. I have a question for you about one of your pals, one of your friends. Text messages were recently released from the January 6th committee sent by Sean Hannity on January 6th. In it, it appears that he's contradicting what you were trying to tell your staff that day, and at least text messages to one senior staffer. Do you still consider Hannity a friend and ally?
Well, I don't know what messages you're talking about, but I think he's a great gentleman, a very talented person. He gets fantastic ratings, and certainly he speaks well of me. He agrees with what I'm saying, so I really don't know. I haven't seen him. Oh, I haven't seen him, no. I haven't heard about him or seen him. No, I think he's fantastic.
Mr. President.
Yeah,
Mr. President, during your whole administration, the slogan, promises made, promises kept, resonated. Last year, you promised to roll out a social media platform that all Americans can jump on to secure their voice. Just 2 weeks ago, you rolled out Truth Social.
Yeah.
Would you please comment on the success of this rollout and how significant it is in our culture of communication?
Well, I think it's been an incredible success. I mean, you have hundreds of thousands of people trying to get on, and we're doing it very slowly. You know, you open something like that. I had hundreds of millions of people. All of a sudden, we had nobody. We had no voice, and now we're going to have a very strong voice again. We have tremendous, as you see, and we're getting tremendous reviews too on the platform itself. But it's slowly been opened. People are getting on, and they're loving the product, and we're getting a voice.
When can we get your first post?
Well, we'll be doing it pretty soon. I wanted to hold on a little bit, but people are loving it, as you know. And I love the fact that we got the word truth. Truth is a great word. Yeah.
Right now, the app, as of this morning, the waiting list is closing in on 1 million people. Has that even exceeded your expectations?
I thought it would do very well. I've done very well in this world, and I thought it would do very well. But the two things I'm really happy about, they love it once they get on, and the list of people wanting to get on is record-breaking. So we're very happy.
Mr. President.
Yeah, please. Hi.
We're seeing a lot of bravery from Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky. And, you know, he's not abandoning his people. He's staying and taking up arms with his countrymen. If you were in a similar situation as president, would you take up arms like Zelensky?
Well, you know, you never know about bravery. Some people think they're brave and they're not brave, and other people don't think of themselves as very brave and they step up. You never know until you get tested. And he's being tested at the highest level, and so far he's really shown great leadership and great bravery. They say he was an actor or a comedian, and all of that's fine, but he is showing a lot of bravery so far, and hopefully we won't have to need that too much longer, because maybe things can end. This should not happen. This should never have happened.
And he said that he thinks that Putin will kill him. Do you think that's true?
Well, that's what he thinks. I believe he does think that, and it's probably true, but he is showing great bravery, absolutely.
Mr. President, the Department of Justice under your administration opened up basically a China espionage initiative. Now the Department of Justice has shut that down. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm surprised they did. We were very careful with that. And China, as you know, is a very big player, but it can be a very dangerous player in so many different ways, especially in that we had it very well shut down, and now they're opening it up. And I'm surprised to see that. I don't think we should be doing that, but that's what they want to do. That's what they want to do. I think it's a big mistake.
Mr. President, are you confident in the election integrity measures that have been instituted by certain legislatures, in Pennsylvania particularly? Are you concerned about this fall?
Well, a lot of things are going on in Pennsylvania. As an example, many subpoenas are out, and they're seeing the kind of corruption that we've all seen, that I've seen. When you look at the ballot harvesting, that has been like hundreds of thousands of votes, and this is just now coming out. And we have it on tape. They have it on pings. A ping is now a modern-day fingerprint, and it's conclusive and it's determinative. But Pennsylvania knows, as you know, over the last 3 or 4 months, they've become very active because they found out that, I believe they found out that it was a big scam in Pennsylvania, and it's been a scam in many other states too.
Do you feel it's been fixed?
I don't know that they're fixing it. I think they're finding out what happened, more importantly right now, because you really have to find out what happened in order to properly fix it. And I think they have some very good leadership right now in Pennsylvania and I'm not talking about the governor who doesn't want anything to do with it because he understood what happened. But we have some very good Republican leadership in Pennsylvania, and they're finding out tremendous things that took place during the 2020 presidential election. It was a scam what took place in Pennsylvania and other mostly swing states, probably other states also, but they focused on the swing states.
Mr. President, how concerned are you that China might move on Taiwan based on what's happening right now with Ukraine? And are there also concerns that North Korea might be getting a little anxious as well to go back in and reunify?
Well, we did very well with North Korea. As you remember, we were supposed to go to war with North Korea. We never came close. I got along with Kim Jong-un very well. We had a very good relationship. A lot of people say, oh, that's terrible that he had a relationship. Well, we had a very good relationship. We got along. And we didn't have nuclear holocaust. We didn't have, because he has a lot of nukes and a lot of different, we know exactly what he's got, and it's very substantial. He seems not to like President Biden very much, and we'll see what happens there. With China and others, I've been saying for a long while now that, look, I happen to think that the withdrawal, the way we withdrew from Afghanistan, was one of the most embarrassing moments in the history of our country. I actually think that if that didn't take place, you might not have what's happening in Ukraine right now. I think when Putin saw that and when President Xi of China witnessed that, I think he has a whole different design right now than he would have had before that. I think they looked at that and saw it grossly incompetent. Losing soldiers, leaving Americans behind, $75 to $85 billion worth of the best military equipment in the world, leaving that behind, having the military move first. I think it's one of the most embarrassing moments, and I really think that's a contributing factor to what's happening today in Ukraine, and I think it's going to also lead to a similar thing happening in Taiwan. They wanted to get the Olympics finished. The Olympics are now finished. Let's see what happens. You know, yesterday bombers flew over airspace. First time in many, many decades that's happened. That would have never again happened during my administration. And a lot of people, even the radical left, I saw Chuck Todd said the other day, how come, he was talking to Blinken or somebody, he said, how come this never happened in the 4 years that President Trump was there? That was a shocking question. And they were unable to answer that question. Someday I'll write a book and I'll tell you why it never happened, but it never happened.
Mr. President, there's a very, very important question to be asked. What is the one sanction or the two sanctions that have not been implemented to stop Vladimir Putin that you would implement given a Trump presidency?
Sanctions. Now you have to understand, sanctions are very expensive for our country also. But the one that people are talking about, which is very, very severe, as you know, is SWIFT. And that just really destroys a banking system of a country. It's a very big step, and we'll see whether or not that step is taken. But thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people could die with this, and this could spread to other countries, and it could spread throughout the world. I mean, this could be a world war. Something has to be done. Should have never started, and it did, and something has to be done. So that would be the one that seems to be on most people's minds. If you read, if you see, if you study, that seems to be the one that's
given the situation
the most
now,
powerful.
What should be done? If you were president right now, and the situation is what it is now, which you say it wouldn't have gotten here, what should Joe Biden do? What should Biden do?
Well, I think I know exactly what should be done. Number one, we shouldn't be here. But on the assumption that we're here, and that's a big assumption, but it's happened. There are things that he should do. I would rather not tell him under this forum. I don't think it's appropriate to say that, but there are things he could do that would be very strong, very powerful, and I think would end it pretty quickly. But remember this, we are the greatest nuclear power. When I was in office, I had it rebuilt, modernized, and also rebuilt our military, also started Space Force, which has a lot to do with what we're talking about. But we're the greatest nuclear power. But Russia has an almost equal nuclear power. And China is 5 years behind, but they have very substantial nuclear power. We all have to be very careful.
We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you all.
Thank you.
God bless.
Thank
Hope
you.
the family's doing well. Hope the family's doing
Thank
well.
you all very much.
Thank you.
I like you people.
We love you too, Mr. President. Thank you.
President Trump still has it. He still knows what's going on, and he's still taking care of business. Here we go, folks. It's going to be a good one. Now, to kind of change things around a little bit, I want to put another perspective on this. Salty Cracker has something to say. Playing a bit from him. This is basically to let people know what to expect. We have this new war going on, and the media has got all sorts of tricks and deceiving ways to make you think of what they want you to think.
If this is your first war, if you're 20 years old and this is like, I guess, your first fucking war where you haven't noticed what's going on, but it's the same recurring bit over here, you're going to be inundated with a massive amount of stupid propaganda. Welcome to the party. All right. Those of us who are 40, we remember the weapons of mass destruction. We got to go to war. Gotta go to war. Have to give all of our soldiers experimental anthrax vaccines. How'd that turn out? Because we gotta go to war. Weapons of mass destruction. Look at that. They're killing babies in incubators, taking babies out of the incubators and smashing them into the ground. We gotta do something about it right now. All right? All that was stupid. All of that was fake. All of it was false. All of it was to get us into a situation where taxpayers are funding these sons of bitches, throwing our military into a meat grinder while destroying the lives of 1 million plus Iraqis over there. So a bunch of head oligarchs can get rich. So the mainstream media industrial complex and the military combine can get rich. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Seen a lot of stories coming out of Ukraine right now. And in the mainstream media press, it's all 100% positive Ukrainian, by the way. Like, you would think that everybody in Ukraine, and I'm not talking about the people in Ukraine, I'm talking about the people who run Ukraine, right? Every single MP in the Ukraine, every single person in the government official capacity of Ukraine, they're all saints, boys. They're all saints. Everybody on a natural gas pipeline in Ukraine, they all summa cum laude saints, boys. Right? Then, of course, in comes Hitler Putin over here, and he's going to come after the gazes and the black Ukrainians, boys. What the f? This is too stupid to be stupid. This is written by a diversity hire in Washington, D.C. This is one of these purple-headed goombas inside a Starbucks with Captain Marvel hairdos and all types of, well, I'm the resistance. Look at me. I'm bashing fash and I'm bashing capitalism on my $2,000 Apple laptop over here.
Salty Cracker, always a unique and interesting perspective of things. So check him out. You'll definitely learn something. I promise you that. And he's also, like I said, you can be part of the Salty Army. He's got a good following. My main reason for playing Salty for you was to show you there's many different outlets. You need to check different sources. You need to check different newscasts out. You will get so one-sided if you just listen to CNN, MSNBC, places like that. You need to look at alternative news outlets like Right Side Broadcasting. They're awesome. Russell Brand, the Epic Times, even Tim Pool, he exposes a lot of truths out there. So many places for you to get this information. So keep looking for that elusive truth. Next time we'll have Larry with us. He's got a lot to say before he goes on vacation. I'm telling you, he's got a whole lot to say about what's going on, even crazier than you think. So stay tuned. Take care. Have a good week. The people of Ukraine, the citizens of Ukraine, the citizens of Russia, and the people of the world that are affected by this, our prayers. We hope that this will get taken care of. And it's the governments is the point I'm trying to make. It's the governments that are doing this. The people, I am sure, don't want this. God bless. Take care. We haven't forgot about you Canadians, and we still have something going on with our truckers here. This is the big news right now. That's all they want you to hear. Nothing else. Take care. Peace out. Bye-bye.